8 signs that give away a woman who just slept with someone else. The most devastating pain isn't the act of betrayal itself, but the chilling realization that the lips you just kissed have touched another. The body you hold once belonged to a different embrace, and you remained utterly unaware. Many men deceive themselves, chalking up distance to stress, age, or mere routine, but the truth is far more brutal. While women rarely confess, they always reveal. Miss these subtle cues, and you become an unwitting accomplice in your own humiliation. You won't want to miss the final insight, or 99% will remain stuck in this dynamic for life. Physical distance. The absence of warmth in her touch is a profound signal. You know the weight of a genuine embrace, the heat of a loving kiss, the unspoken pull of her body towards yours. When that current disappears, it leaves an unmistakable void. This isn't about a lack of words. It's a silence spoken by the flesh. She may turn away from a kiss or stiffen at your touch, claiming fatigue, yet her body lacks the heaviness of genuine exhaustion, replaced instead by a chilling indifference. Tiredness can be mended by sleep, but indifference is a much deeper wound. When a woman's intimate needs have been met elsewhere, she doesn't return to you with hunger, but with a hollow satisfaction that leaves no room for you. Trying to reignite passion in a relationship where desire has already been extinguished elsewhere is like striking matches against cold, dead wood. The error men make here is profound denial, attributing these shifts to the natural progression of relationships rather than a redirection of affection. Attraction doesn't simply age, it moves. If her embrace has shifted from eager to distant, that's not routine. It's a critical signal. Your response shouldn't be desperation or pressure. Instead, observe. Pull back and see if the distance naturally closes or widens. A woman who still desires you will seek you out. One who has given herself away will allow the chasm to grow. Your task is not to force a response, but to recognize its absence. This awareness, though painful, is a catalyst for liberation, freeing you from the futile pursuit of a flame already put out by another. But beware, even if her body remains silent, her actions will begin to betray her. Ritualistic cleanliness. When a woman has been intimate with another man, she doesn't simply walk back into your life unchanged. Instead, she often emerges radiating an almost excessive freshness. A new perfume you don't recognize, a shower that seems to last an eternity, a sudden impulse to change clothes and underwear without apparent reason. On the surface, this appears as self-care, but beneath it lies a desperate attempt to erase any trace of her transgression. This is the erasing ritual, a desperate scrubbing not just of her skin, but of her conscience. Men often miss this, preferring the comfort of simpler explanations, a new scent, a desire to feel clean. This self-deception allows them to avoid the stark possibility that she's meticulously removing evidence of another man. Her body, she knows, tells tales. Skin retains scents, hair holds traces, clothes bear contact. So she scrubs, she sprays, she hides the evidence under layers of fragrance. The more she attempts to erase, the more the act screams its origin. This sudden obsession with hygiene isn't random, it's a pattern. This isn't to suggest every shower is an indicator of infidelity, but rather that significant shifts in behavior are critical. If she's never been one to rush to the bathroom after work, but now does, or if she guards her laundry with unusual zeal, pay attention. Psychology hinges on observing deviations from the norm, on noticing when the rhythm of her actions no longer aligns with her relationship with you. Stop excusing the inexcusable. Don't brush off these behaviors as mere quirks. Observe, connect the dots. If this ritual repeats, especially after periods of unexplained absence, the truth becomes evident. The mistake is ignoring your senses, calling a foreign fragrance mere scent and over-cleanliness personal growth. This is how you become complicit in your own displacement. The solution lies in awareness. When the pattern emerges, confront it not with rage, but with clarity. You don't need to accuse, you need to see. Once you see, you can't unsee. And that clarity fundamentally alters your approach. But hygiene is merely the surface. The emotional fallout of guilt runs much deeper, manifesting in ways that are harder to scrub away. Projected irritation. When guilt becomes an unbearable burden, a woman often shifts its weight, projecting it onto you. Suddenly, you become the problem. A simple greeting is met with a complaint. A minor domestic task like loading the dishwasher is done incorrectly. You're too quiet or perhaps too talkative. Nothing you do seems to be right. This pervasive irritation is not accidental, it's a deliberate strategy. The underlying psychology is simple. By casting you as the antagonist, she avoids feeling like the betrayer. In her mind, she rewrites the narrative, convincing herself that her actions were a consequence of your perceived failings, your inattention, your controlling nature, your perceived boredom. This is projection in its most potent form. Unable to reconcile the conflict within herself, she pushes it outward. The trap men fall into is engaging in self-defense, attempting to logic their way out of the situation. But logic has no power against guilt. The more you defend yourself, the more ammunition she gains to portray you as the villain, leading you to tread on eggshells in your own home. The crucial shift is to abandon the defensive posture. You don't need to win the argument, you need to reclaim your dignity. The next time she lashes out over trivial matters, resist the urge to react. Instead, meet her gaze calmly and state, you don't need to fight to justify what you've already decided. Then, withdraw not from weakness, but from strength. This action signals that you recognize the tactic and refuse to participate in her charade. This single move rebalances the dynamic. By refusing to play the role she's assigned you, her script crumbles. The weight of her guilt settles where it belongs, with her. You, on the other hand, have just reasserted your emotional autonomy. Many question if silence in such a situation is weakness. It is not. Weakness is allowing yourself to be manipulated into chaos. Strength lies in control. You are not ignoring the problem, you are refusing to be its victim. This discernment is what separates a man who is drained from one who stands firm. But remember, projection is a powerful defense, yet it is not the ultimate shield. There are other arenas where the truth surfaces, untouched by her excuses, revealing itself in the very fabric of her being. Bodily disconnect. A woman may meticulously craft her excuses, mask her emotions, and polish her narrative to perfection, but her body will always betray her. This is where men often fail themselves, not because they lack the capacity to see, but because they refuse to acknowledge what they already perceive. You know her intimately, her rhythms, her warmth, her typical reactions. Any deviation from this baseline is a signal you feel, even if you fight against admitting it. She might appear unusually tense or perhaps unnaturally relaxed. Her responsiveness could be exaggerated or strangely muted. These shifts, whether subtle or stark, are never random. The difficult truth is, you don't need to be a psychologist to notice. You simply need to be honest. Men often rationalize these changes, attributing them to hormonal fluctuations or stress. While these factors can play a role, a sudden, uncharacteristic shift demands your attention. Ignoring what your senses have already registered is the quickest path to self-humiliation. The mistake lies in believing that denial is a form of relationship preservation. It is not. It is merely a postponement of inevitable collapse. A body that has experienced intimacy with another carries an imprint, an unspoken energy that you sense, even if you consciously try to suppress it. To ignore this intuition is to engage in a deeper deception of yourself than she could ever achieve. Therefore, cease running from your intuition. If something feels off, acknowledge it. Don't suppress it. Moreover, stop overcompensating with excessive effort. Men often respond to perceived distance by increasing affection, patience, or intensity in intimacy, as if more effort can repair what has already been compromised. It cannot. You do not win back desire by sheer force of will. You reclaim it by recognizing when it has departed. A practical approach is to step back from chasing her physical presence and step into clarity. If intimacy feels hollow, reduce the intensity and observe. Do not accuse or interrogate. Simply note the consistency of the change. This awareness serves as your safeguard, preventing further investment in someone who has already emotionally detached. The stark reality is that ignoring your intuition is not strength, it is fear. True strength lies in confronting what you already know, regardless of the pain it may cause. However, guilt doesn't always manifest as coldness. Sometimes it prompts the opposite reaction. An exaggerated show of affection, a tenderness that feels almost too perfect to be true. Excessive affection. Not every instance of infidelity is met with emotional withdrawal. Sometimes it arrives cloaked in an abundance of kisses, hugs, and a sudden surge of sweetness. If you're not vigilant, you might mistake this guilt-driven behavior for renewed affection. This is one of the most insidious forms of deception because it exploits your deepest hopes. You felt her pulling away, sensed the growing distance, and then, suddenly, she's holding your hand, whispering declarations of love with watery eyes. Your heart yearns to believe this is a genuine return to connection, but it's often an attempt to appease her conscience, not rekindle your bond. Her affection is not a testament to her love for you, but a desperate measure to silence her internal turmoil. The psychology here is that after crossing a boundary, many women don't retreat. They cling. Not out of rediscovered desire, but out of a need to assuage their guilt. The touching, the cooking, the sweet words, these are performances designed to keep her self-loathing at bay. The significant error men make is accepting this overture as a second chance. You lower your guard, cease your observations, and breathe a sigh of relief, only to find yourself in the position of a comfort object, a safe harbor she seeks while her true passions lie elsewhere. You become the holder of her guilt, not the recipient of her love. The crucial step is to scrutinize the source of this affection. Does it manifest consistently or only in waves following unexplained absences? Does her touch convey desire or is it tinged with obligation? Does her tenderness feel authentic or rehearsed and exaggerated? These questions cut through the emotional fog. The difficult truth is to refuse to reward guilt-laden affection. Do not allow her to cleanse her conscience by leaning on you. You don't need embraces born from betrayal. You need honesty, even if it's harsh. A powerful statement you can make, not to her, but to yourself is, "I would rather have your silence than your guilty embrace." This assertion reclaims your self-respect in the face of false tenderness. True love requires no such theatrical display. Genuine connection doesn't emerge from the ashes of guilt. If her affection feels like an apology rather than desire, you already possess the discerning knowledge to recognize the difference, and once you know, the pretense can no longer hold. However, if you continue to accept her guilty embrace, the next stage of deception becomes even more profound, as she will not merely be physically present without desire, but her mind will wander far from you. Emotional absence in intimacy. There exists a profound distinction between physical proximity and genuine soul connection. Once you have experienced this difference, it becomes impossible to unfeel. This is where betrayal strikes the deepest, not through overt actions, but through withheld presence. She may offer her body, but she no longer offers herself. Imagine being in bed, the outward appearance of intimacy present, the touch, the movement, even the sounds, yet an intangible something is missing. Her eyes may appear vacant, her energy failing to synchronize with yours. You sense her mind is elsewhere, replaying memories that exclude you. This is not intimacy, it is a performance. The brutal reality is that a woman who is emotionally absent during intimacy has already mentally checked out. You are not making love, you are participating in her cover-up. The recurring self-deception men employ is the comforting lie of "she's just tired" or "it's stress." Yet deep down, you recognize the chasm. Fatigue allows for presence. Stress allows for connection. This absence is a void. The common error is to escalate your efforts, believing more affection, patience, or intensity will bring her back. Ironically, the more you push, the further she retreats, because her passion hasn't vanished, it's simply burning elsewhere. Each added effort on your part teaches her that she owes you nothing in return. The solution is to stop chasing phantoms. Respect yourself enough to acknowledge when her spirit is not present with you. Scale back your efforts. Speak less. Crucially, do not mistake physical participation for emotional presence. When her spirit has departed, your role is not to drag it back, but to decide if you will continue to lie beside someone whose presence grows colder each night. A simple practice. The next time you sense this absence, do not try to fill it with more effort. Pause, observe her, and internally acknowledge the truth. I am not here to beg for connection. I am here to recognize reality. This mental reorientation is transformative. It shifts you from a man desperately seeking to revive a dying bond to one who acknowledges the truth. Being beside a woman who is not truly with you is not love. It is a form of self-inflicted humiliation. And if you allow this humiliation to take root, the subsequent signs will reveal themselves with undeniable clarity, as she will not only be emotionally absent during intimacy, but physically absent from your time. Late returns and flimsy excuses. When love is genuine, time seems to bend to accommodate it. A woman who still desires you will find her way back to you, even on the most demanding days. However, when her passion has waned, the clock often seems to work against you. She becomes habitually late, her excuses growing progressively thinner. She might cite work running long, a dead phone battery, or a friend's urgent need. Initially, you want to believe her, convincing yourself these are normal life occurrences. Indeed, life can be unpredictable. But when unpredictability morphs into a consistent pattern, when lateness becomes routine, it ceases to be about life's complexities and becomes about priority. And you are no longer at the apex of that list. The psychological dynamic at play here is that lateness is more than a simple absence of time. It's a test. She is not merely running behind. She is gauging your tolerance. She wants to see if you will question her behavior, if you will challenge it, or if you will continue to accept less while hoping for more. Each time you allow it to pass without comment, you inadvertently train her, teaching her that your dignity is a negotiable commodity. The prevailing mistake men make is to remain silent. You recognize the inconsistency, you feel the sting, but you suppress it, telling yourself that raising the issue will make you appear insecure. However, insecurity is not about seeking respect. It is about feigning ignorance. The correct approach is to call the behavior what it is, not with anger or pleading, but with firm boundaries. The next time she arrives late with another superficial story, refrain from interrogation or demands for detail. Instead, simply acknowledge the reality. You weren't here, and that tells me everything I need to know. Then allow the silence to settle. This silence possesses more power than any argument, as it places the responsibility squarely back on her choices. A practical strategy is to track the pattern, not the excuse. Avoid wasting time dissecting the minutiae of each fabricated story. Instead, focus on the frequency, the tone, and your visceral reaction each time it occurs. Patterns consistently reveal the truth even when words attempt to conceal it. The harsh reality is that a woman who truly chooses you will always return. Occasional tardiness may occur, but chronic lateness is a deliberate choice. If she no longer consistently returns to you, it is because she is returning to someone else. Yet, lateness is only part of the narrative. Even in her attempts to conceal her actions, her own words will eventually betray her, and when her story unravels under the weight of its own contradictions, the truth will finally be laid bare. The collapse of her narrative stories are inherently fragile constructs. They can be rehearsed, refined, and repeated. But the moment pressure is applied, cracks inevitably appear. When a woman has transgressed, her narrative will eventually crumble under the weight of its own inconsistencies. You've witnessed this before. She returns late, her words tumbling out too rapidly, the details shifting with each retelling. One evening, it was a coworker needing assistance. The next, a last-minute errand. You notice the gaps, the mismatched timelines, the dissonance between her tone and her words. Most tellingly, observe her eyes. They no longer meet yours directly, but dart away, drop, or flicker with an undeniable unease. This is not stress. It is the desperate struggle of deception trying to maintain its facade. The mistake men often make is demanding irrefutable proof, a smoking gun. However, truth does not always present itself with a receipt. It emerges through inconsistencies, through the gradual unraveling of her story, the more you listen. The harder she tries to control the narrative, the more apparent it becomes that the narrative is slipping from her grasp. Therefore, cease playing the role of detective. You do not need to gather evidence for a trial. The signals, the behavioral shifts, the silences, and the patterns are already sufficient. When her story begins to collapse, do not engage in argument. Step away from it. Do not plead for her to make it coherent or demand confessions. Simply make a decision. I do not believe you, and I no longer need to. This is not an accusation. It is the establishment of a boundary. The empowering shift occurs when you stop demanding explanations and reclaim your power. You cease to be the man chasing clarity from someone who thrives on confusion, and instead become the man who defines the terms. That term is simple: respect or nothing. A practical action. Cultivate quiet recognition. The next time her narrative begins to falter, resist the urge to fill the silence with questions. Allow it to disintegrate. Do not rescue her from the burden of her own contradictions. That silence is your ally, exposing what words seek to hide. Understand this. You do not need to bellow cheater to regain your dignity. All you require is clarity and the courage to act upon it. When her story collapses, the authenticity of her actions becomes secondary. The primary issue remaining is your decision. Will you continue to deceive yourself, or will you stand as the man you know yourself to be? This is the definitive moment. After observing all 8 signs, the true question is not whether she betrayed you, but whether you will betray yourself by remaining willfully blind. You have just been presented with 8 critical indicators. This is not about transforming you into a paranoid investigator, scrutinizing every minute detail. It is about opening your eyes to prevent your own self-betrayal. The most profound betrayal is not what she does in secrecy, but what you permit yourself to ignore in plain sight. The objective here was never to catch her in the act. It was to reclaim your dignity, your boundaries, and your inherent power as a man who deserves respect. These signs are not merely clues to infidelity, they are urgent warnings that something is amiss, something requires direct attention, and that overlooking these issues will exact a severe toll on your self-respect. The truth that eludes most men is that not every sign guarantees betrayal. Distance can stem from stress, exhaustion, or years of poor communication. Therefore, your role is not to accuse, but to test, observe, and confront reality directly. If there remains a foundation for repair, then engage in repair. Have the necessary conversations, re-establish boundaries, and fight for genuine connection. However, if the evidence accumulates, if every sign corroborates what your intuition has already confirmed, then the most masculine course of action is to depart with your dignity intact. True love should never be a trade for self-respect. My challenge to you is this: identify one situation in your life where you have disregarded your own instincts. Perhaps it's her sudden coldness, her persistent irritation, or her habitually inconsistent narratives. Do not dismiss it this time. Confront it. Determine whether it is a problem you can resolve with her, or if it signifies an absolute end. Regardless of the outcome, that decision is yours alone to make, free from her deceptions and your own fears. Before you leave, commit to subscribing, like this video, and share it with any man who still refuses to acknowledge what stands before him. In the comment section, share your experience. Have you ever recognized one of these signs? How did you navigate that situation? Your story could be the catalyst that awakens another man before it is tragically too late. This is not an end point, but the commencement of reclaiming what has always been yours, your self-respect, your clarity, and the freedom to choose love without sacrificing your own identity. Wow, the collapse of her story point hit me hard. Noticed this myself recently. Thanks for the clarity.